It was the first day of final exams. A Friday in December. Cold, quiet, the kind of morning that makes a college campus feel like the whole world. Lynne Schulze had an English exam at 1 o'clock. She was prepared. She had perfect attendance in that class. She had registered for spring semester. She had called her parents 2 nights before, and everything was fine. At 12:55 in the afternoon, a friend stepped out of Lynne's dorm room to head to the exam. She assumed Lynne would follow. Lynne never came. She was 18 years old, and she was never seen again. Lynne Catherine Schulze grew up in Simsbury, Connecticut, a small, quiet town west of Hartford. She was an outdoors person. She hiked, she cycled, she skied. She had joined the Middlebury College Outdoor Club in her first semester and was already exploring the forests and ridgelines of Vermont on weekends. She was close with her family. She wrote letters home. She kept in touch. By all accounts, Lynne was settling into college life well. She had friends. She had a social circle. She took a whittling class at the Vermont Craft Center and showed her finished project to several classmates with pride. She was, by the picture her family and friends paint, a curious, gentle, deeply alive young woman just beginning to find her way in the world. She was not depressed. She was not failing. She had no known reason to disappear. And yet, on the morning of December 10th, 1971, something happened. Something that has never, in over 50 years, been fully explained. What makes Lynne's disappearance so deeply unsettling is how precisely it can be reconstructed, right up until the moment it can't be reconstructed at all. At 7:45 in the morning, her roommate left their dorm room. Lynne was still in bed. At 12:30 in the afternoon, a fellow student spotted her outside a building on Court Street, the same block as the town's bus station and a local health food store called All Good Things. She was eating dried prunes she had apparently just purchased from the store. When asked where she was going, she said New York, but the bus had already left. At 12:45, the same friend who would later go to the exam saw Lynne back in her dorm room. Lynne seemed distracted. She didn't want to talk about the exam. She was looking for her favorite pen. At 12:50, the friend looked in again. Lynne was still there. At 12:55, the friend left for the exam. The room was empty. Lynne was gone. At 1 o'clock, Lynne did not appear for her English final. At 2:15 in the afternoon, a student reported seeing Lynne standing on Court Street, across from All Good Things. That was the last confirmed sighting of Lynne Schulze. She left behind her wallet, her identification, her clothes, her sleeping bag, everything. She was not reported missing for 6 days. The initial investigation was, by most accounts, inadequate. The first Middlebury police chief to handle the case reportedly believed Lynne had simply chosen to leave, that she was a young woman who needed time to herself and would eventually get back in touch. The case received little media attention. The search was limited. There were sightings. A man claimed he had driven Lynne to the interstate, where she planned to hitchhike to Washington, D.C. Reports came in from Northampton, Massachusetts, and Claremont, New Hampshire. In May of 1972, police were so convinced they had located her at a commune in rural Vermont that they were preparing to cancel the missing persons alert. It wasn't her. Every lead dissolved. Every sighting led nowhere. Several people came forward over the years with confessions of involvement. All were false. The case was reopened in 1992. Then, in 2012, something changed. An anonymous tip reached the Middlebury Police Department. The caller said that the health food store on Court Street, All Good Things, the same store where Lynne had bought dried prunes on the morning she vanished, had been owned in 1971 by a man named Robert Durst. If you don't know the name Robert Durst, here's what you need to know. He was the heir to a New York real estate fortune. He lived in Middlebury, Vermont for approximately 2 years beginning in 1971, the same year Lynne disappeared. He owned All Good Things. His future wife, Kathleen, joined him there in January of 1972, 1 month after Lynne vanished. In 1982, Kathleen Durst disappeared from New York City. She was never found. Robert Durst has long been considered a suspect in her disappearance. In 2001, Robert Durst was charged with the dismemberment death of his neighbor in Texas. He claimed self-defense. He was acquitted. In 2015, he was charged with the first-degree murder of his close friend Susan Berman, who had been shot in her home in the year 2000, just before she was scheduled to speak to prosecutors about the disappearance of Kathleen. When police in Middlebury announced in 2015 that they were aware of a connection between Durst and Lynne's case, investigators confirmed they had visited property once owned by Durst. They described him as a person that is very interesting to them. Robert Durst was never formally named a suspect in Lynne's disappearance. In 2022, he was convicted of the murder of Susan Berman. He died in custody that same year at the age of 78. Whatever he knew, if he knew anything at all, he took it with him. Lynne Schulze would be 72 years old today. Her parents never got answers. They both passed away in the 1990s, still waiting. Her sisters Anne and Janet have spent decades keeping her name alive, attending remembrance events, speaking to journalists, pushing investigators to keep looking. Every year, on February 9th and on December 10th, her face appears twice in the Schulze family calendar. A small, quiet act of remembrance that has continued for over 50 years. The Middlebury Police Department still lists the case as open. Anyone with information is asked to contact them directly. Lynne left behind her wallet, her identification, her sleeping bag, her pen, the one she was still looking for at 12:50 that afternoon. 5 minutes later, she was gone. And in 50 years, no one has been able to explain those 5 minutes.
If you have any information about the 1971 disappearance of Lynne Schulze, please contact the Middlebury Police Department at 802-388-3191.
All details in this story are based on publicly reported information. Timelines and events may be approximate, and some aspects of this case remain unverified. Robert Durst was never formally named as a suspect in the disappearance of Lynne Schulze. This case remains open.